And welcome back to the Nose Play Slay the Spire. Today, we're going to continue the run with the Ironclad that we began earlier this morning. I'm going to try to conquer floor 2 and see how far we get while going into great detail about every decision that I'm making. A couple of points before we move forward. One of the things I mentioned in the last video, specifically regarding the unknown sites, is that you can draw elites in these. I don't believe that that is completely true. There are certain events that will allow you to fight an elite, but don't force you to necessarily. I don't think they're actually in the random pool of events that you can pull normally, other than these special events that have an elite related to them, but it's not a mandatory fight. That might be different at higher ascensions, though. That might be one of the challenges that appears, so I don't know for sure. But that was one thing, and then the other thing is at the very end of the fight, I didn't spend a lot of time talking about the potion that we ended up using to win, or why I was doing it. The situation that we found ourselves in was not a great one at the very end of the Exegos fight, and so the potion is going to play the top 3 cards off the deck without spending any of our energy. We had already applied a vulnerable status effect to the boss, so my thought process was, if we get a couple of really good strikes for like significant damage, we might be able to just beat the snot out of this guy. And that's essentially exactly what happened if you go back and watch that. So it turned out really well. There was definitely a chance we could have drew 3 blocks, and that would have sucked. But it wouldn't have been the end of the world. And we probably still would have won that fight. Also, remember, like I said in the video, when you get to the boss, your health is a resource, and you need to use it. It's okay to take damage as long as you survive the fight with at least 1 hit point. If you survive the fight with 1 hit point, you move on to the next floor with full health, unless you're playing at the higher ascensions, in which case you get a limited amount of healing, which may or may not move you to full health. So that's something to keep in mind. I've already taken a few minutes to look at the road here for Act 2. Act 2 is themed after a city, so we're moving through a city. We're going to encounter some encounters that make a lot more like slavers and people-like encounters, I guess you might say. So the pool of encounters are going to be different this time around. The boss that we have, I forget the exact name of it, I think it's the champion. It's a big knight. He is a pretty tough dude, but he's really... I haven't had a really hard time beating him. He goes through like 3 stages, so as he takes damage, he'll basically buff himself several times throughout the fight and make his future attacks stronger. If you get stalled out on finishing him off once he reaches his 3rd stage, where he gets a significant strength buff, it can spell the end of your run. I also wanted to take just 1 minute to quickly recap the relics that we got and some of the cards that we got that we're looking to, and what we're looking to do with our deck moving forward. So this is kind of the pivot point. We get a good foundation of cards at the beginning of Act 1 and sort of build really, really great synergies from here on out is what we're looking for. So our relic allowed us to get through a good part of the dungeon, or the Spire, last act, and we ended at the boss with like 72 or 75 hit points, something like that, so near full health. This item we got pretty early in the run at our one event that we took, and that was a 50-50 between a good event or a bad event. We got a good one, and we ended up getting 8 more fights in, which gave us an 8% or a 10% increase to our overall health. That's permanent, and every fight that we continue to win from here on out is going to continue this, so I'm going to kind of lean into that a little bit. We also got the Amamamore. I can't remember exactly how to pronounce this. Omamore. Which cancels the next 2 curses we receive. That's going to synergize really well with the cursed key we took from the boss fight. So we're now going to have 4 energy every single round but we do pick up a few curses when we get to the treasure chests, and those are like right here. So there's a set of chests there, and those are the only ones. I think there's a couple of treasure chests that you can find at these sites. You'll run into that occasionally. And then finally, our pen nib. Every 10th attack you play deals double damage. If I can remember to pay attention to this thing, we can get a lot of damage in with some of our big cards like Blood for Blood and Wicked Strike. So let's take a look at our cards real quick. We still have all of our strikes and all of our defense that we started with, along with our upgraded bash. We picked up a Clothesline, a Rage, a Pommel Strike, an Iron Wave, an Infernal Blade just for the memes. We upgraded our Whirlwind because we were having trouble finding AoE attacks, and this came in clutch for us a couple of times. I also misplayed it once. If I had played it properly the first time we were trying to use Pen Nib, I think we would have just killed the enemy outright. Grabbed a Shrug It Off to add a little bit more block to our deck since we had so many more attacks. Blocks were getting a little thin. A Wild Strike for just more damage. Battle Trance to cycle our deck. Shockwave's really good against the bosses and certain fights where we just want to like hit everybody and get these status effects rolling. Then we picked up a late Blood for Blood and upgraded it just so we can really get the damage rolling in longer fights when this goes to 0 damage. This really starts to pay dividends. And last but not least, we took Demon Form, which gain 2 strength at the end of, or at the start of your turn. Very slow card, not a card we're going to get a lot of use out of in the small fights leading up to the elites and the boss. But if we can get this upgraded, 3 strength every turn scales a lot faster. And more importantly, we can start looking for cards that are going to synergize with this better. The only card that we have that's really synergistic with it is this. And so if we really want to take advantage of this card, we definitely want to find more cards that have some kind of multi-attack built into their text. I did also want to turn the music down just a little bit. I thought when I went back and listened to the video, it was a little loud, so I don't want to be drowned out too much by the music. We also managed to carry a Essence of Steel potion with us. This just gives us some armor. This is really good in a fight where you know you're just going to get beat on for several turns in a row, and it can just save you quite a bit of life. Especially if you have some block to play with it, because it'll last longer. So each time your block gets broken, this goes down by 1. But I believe as long as the block doesn't break, it resets to the same number on the next turn. So I looked at the path here, and based on our cleric relic that we have, I think this path is going to be very dangerous, but could be extremely profitable. We're definitely going to want to conserve health as much as possible coming up through here. But once we get through these 5 fights, which is going to give us another 5 health, we're going to have a merchant and a campfire, followed by a treasure chest, which we don't get the curse from. And then we can sort of pivot from here. I kind of like this path into an elite, campfire, second elite, campfire boss. But we'll see if that's the way we decide to go in the long run. I think that's it. So let's go ahead and get started. Act 2. So Act 2 is a little bit different. The first 2 fights are drawn from an easy pool in Act 2 instead of the first 3. So we're going to have 2 pretty easy fights. Hopefully we can get through these without taking very much damage in it. Iron Wave is going to block most of it. Iron Wave and Strike is going to maximize our damage output for this turn, and then we just play a Defend and block the rest of it. So not a lot to think about here. The one thing we could do is try to draw into a better card, but I think this is fine. I do dislike the fact that we had 3 of our block cards. That means we have 2 block cards for the rest of this draws, which is kind of going to suck, and then our Iron Wave as well. Technically Rage is a block card, but we really would like to see these sort of spread out so we can maximize the defense that we're getting. Oh, and I totally forgot we had an extra energy, so maybe we should have played this, but it's fine. Gotta remember that we're at 4 energy now. We're also at 5 on our pen nib here. Okay, so this is a turn where we can go ham with the attacks. Luckily we have 3 attacks. 4 would be better, but we didn't end up with 4. So it's just gonna be Rage, Wild Strike. This is a status effect that this particular character always does on his second turn of play, it seems. And it gives us a penalty whenever we play certain types of cards. So you'll see that here in a moment. I don't think there's anything else to do. Guess we'll just throw that out too. And see if we can't finish this guy off pretty quickly. So non-attack cards, shuffle a Dazed into our draw pile. This is really important. Knowing where the cards end up is pretty critical. Going into our draw pile is not nearly as bad as going into, going into our draw pile is much worse than going into our discard pile. So cards that go into our discard pile take much longer to get back into our rotation of cards, while cards that go in here can immediately be drawn the next turn. So Hex is kind of bad. We don't have a lot of great options here. Demon Form is just not going to be good. This fight's going to be way over before this ever takes effect and is really useful. Bash will be good to help finish him off. So that's 2 of our energy, and then we just play these other 2 cards because we have nothing else. The Essence of Steel could probably save us like 7 health over the next 2 turns. And I'm tempted to play it here, but let's see what we get from the Infernal Blade first. Okay. Pummel is a great card that pairs really well with Demon Form. So this is one of those cards that really benefits from Strength. It's a multi-attack card. It does exhaust itself, which means once you've used it, it kind of leaves your deck and doesn't stay in your rotation. That means that it pairs better with things like potions or temporary forms of Strength. Because once you use the temporary form of Strength, this kind of disappears, and then you can sort of focus on whatever the rest of your deck is good at. But we're just going to go ahead and play this here. Now, we definitely want to play it after the Bash, so that we get the vulnerable status first, which will significantly increase the damage. And then we'll just strike. And unfortunately, we're going to eat 10. But we are going to gain back 6 and 1, so we'll gain 7 back, so it's not that big a deal. We should be able to kill him this turn. Yeah, this is just Whirlwind into, what, 48 damage? Alright, what did we end up with? Anchor? Sword Boomerang? And an Exhaust. The Sword Boomerang is upgraded, which is interesting. And we actually do have a source of strength to make that better. But I'm not sure it's good enough. Anger is an interesting card. Deal 6 damage, add a copy of this card into your discard pile. So this card basically duplicates itself and makes itself much more common as you cycle your deck over and over and over again. It can actually get to the point where you're drawing nothing but angers, which can sometimes be bad because it's not a lot of damage, but it is 0 energy. So having a lot of card draw with angers can really pay off. But I'm not 100% sold on an anger in our deck as it stands. Burning Pact, exhaust 1 card, draw 2 cards. This is interesting because we have a number of cards that put a status effect card in our deck that suck. And this allows us to basically destroy that status effect card. Get rid of it, and then draw 2 cards in its place. And the upgraded version of this is even better because it gives you 3 cards. So I think Burning Pact actually has a place in our deck for sure. I think we have a lot of damage, and if we take too many more cards that are just damage, we're going to start finding ourselves really wishing we had more block. And so one of the ways to keep our block in hand is to have things like draw cards like Battle Trance and Burning Pact. So let's go ahead and pick that up. On to the next floor. Oh, this is a beautiful setup for Whirlwind, right? Eight times 4? What is 8 times 4? It's like 32. That's pretty solid. Shrug It Off will prevent 8 damage, which is probably worth playing, but will reduce the effectiveness of this. Burning Pact. So Burning Pact would be useful here if we had like a regular strike that we wanted to just like get out of our deck moving forward for this combat. And then just draw some different cards. Basically replace this and a strike with 2 cards from here. That would actually be helpful. I think we're going to play Clothesline into Shrug into Whirlwind just to get the attack off. It's not going to do a lot of damage, but it'll tickle them both a little bit. This is the Thief fight again, so these guys are going to steal gold. If we can kill them both before they do their smoke bomb attack on like turn 5 or 6, we'll be in good shape. Let's draw a card first and see what we come up with. Okay, defend. So this is a 1, 2, 3, yeah. So let's go ahead and do that. That lowers his damage. And then the question is, I should have played the Rage. So that Rage would have given us 3 more block and put us at 11. And then 11 plus 5 would have been 16, and we only want to take in 1. Instead, we can do 11 and deal 8 to both. That's probably fine. Demon Form, not so good. Bash Iron Wave feels pretty good here. Bash Iron Wave defend is fine for this turn. And might be close to lethal. Not quite. But he's pretty much lethal next turn. Especially if we get like Wicked Strike. Pommel Strike is good enough. So Pommel Strike here. He is doing a defensive move. Let's take a look at our next hand. So our next turn, we're going to get Blood for Blood, Wild Strike, and maybe even Infernal Blade. I think between these 2 cards we have enough to kill. The question is, do we try to draw them now with Battle Trance? I'm a little worried that we're going to end up with both these block cards next turn and not have enough damage for lethal, but... yeah, this was fine. $30 damage. There's 22. Yeah, that's more than 30. So get all of our money back, and a little bit of health back. And a new card. Ooh, 2 interesting cards. 3 interesting cards, actually. We've seen this card before. This is one of the most energy efficient cards in the game. It's just a stock effect with like no synergies. It's just straight 1 energy for 20 damage. There's a handful of cards that do this. The loss of hit points also can trigger certain synergies. So this is just another big damage card. Armaments is another great card, especially if you have a lot of cards that are not upgraded. This will temporarily upgrade all of the cards in your hand for the rest of the fight. And this can be particularly good if you haven't been able to get to many rest sites and upgrade cards, or if you haven't found many upgrade cards. Cleave is a fantastic card, especially upgraded. I like it even better than Whirlwind personally, but they both have their place. This would just give us another AoE attack. The downside is it's not upgraded, and we really only want like the very best cards going in the deck at this point. So the question is, do we have enough damage, and do we have enough block? And I think the answer is we probably need some more block in our deck, and the upgrade effect is just really good. So let's go ahead and grab that. Alright, this is our first hard pool fight. This thing is pretty predictable, and it has a special power that's kind of annoying. So the way that it works is, upon receiving attack damage, it gains block. Block increases as malleable is triggered, resets to 3 at the start of your turn. So every time you attack it more than once in a round, it gains more and more block, which means subsequent attacks do less and less damage. This is another really bad starting hand for us too, because we basically have drawn almost all the block out of our deck in the first hand of the game. A little frustrating for sure. The good news is we could actually play all 3 of these and soak all of that damage. Not all of the damage, but every point of block would be soaked. And then still play whatever comes out of Infernal Blade. So I like that idea a lot, so we'll go ahead and... Searing Blow is just going to be 12 damage. And then we're just going to play this, because we're not going to be able to block anything for quite a while, so we might as well get as much of this blocked as we can. Shockwave has some real potential here because it's going to apply the vulnerable and the weak at the same time. It's going to reduce the damage coming in and increase the damage going out. Burning Pact means we can look for another card if we don't have a play we really like. But I'm actually looking at Shockwave into Blood for Blood right now as a pretty good turn. I kind of wanted to see what Shockwave looks like as far as the weaken. Okay, so now we're going to take 15, but because of the vulnerable, we're going to deal 33. And I think we have to throw this out there with the vulnerable up. It's one of our most powerful cards. It's getting the most efficiency out of that vulnerable status. Unfortunately, it's still a little expensive. The next time it comes around to our hand, it's going to be 0 cost though, so if we last that long. I think this fight will be over before that happens. Alright. So we can see his intention is to apply some kind of a status effect on us this turn. Which is a really bad turn for us to draw these cards because of that, unfortunately. But we can try to draw another card with Pommel Strike. And if we wanted to, we could even try to draw 2 cards by upgrading it with the armaments first. If we were to do that, what would we want to see? Yeah, nothing is really standing out as, like, awesome. Like, most likely we get a strike, maybe we get Battle Trance and get to grab a bunch of cards, but none of these look good. Iron Wave is bad here because we don't have any need for the block. So I think we just play our hand without the upgrade in the draw. And that means we probably play like Clothesline and Pommel Strike just to get maximum damage in. We could Armaments to get more damage, so let's do that just to increase our damage. And this actually is enough to kill because of the vulnerable, so even better. Alright. Interesting. So we could add our second Wild Strike to the deck. This one's upgraded. So it's still in 17 for 1, which is not quite 20 for 1, but still pretty good. Or we could look at Twin Strike. Twin Strike's a common card. Usually you see this in Act 1. But we never did. Twin Strike is a card that benefits a lot from strength, and the more strength you have, the more it benefits. It deals 2 attacks for 5 damage. The upgraded version is 7, and then every point of strength that you have is basically doubled and added to the attack, because each strike gets a point, takes the strength into account. So I have really no desire to grab another Infernal Blade. So it's really between whether we think Twin Strike is going to be better than Wild Strike. Thinking about our demon form, for these to be roughly equivalent, this would have to be upgraded and demon form would have to tick at least once. After demon form's ticked 2 or 3 times, this becomes better than that, and there's no downside to playing it. So in a longer fight, Twin Strike could actually be really good. I don't think it's as good as the upgraded Boomerang Blade that we saw earlier. I don't think it's as good as quite a few other cards, and it would really be better if it were upgraded, and it's not. I'm very torn here. I don't want to be putting too many wounds into our deck, but 17 for 1 is pretty solid. This is only 10 for 1, and 14 for 1 when it's upgraded, without strength. Let's grab a second one of these. We'll see if those status effect cards become too much of a problem for us. Alright. An important detail in this fight, both of these enemies have what's known as an artifact. This is a shield that protects them from status effects. Each instance of a status effect will take away one of the shields. So we have to hit this guy with at least 4 status effects before we can actually break all of his shields and get something like weakness or vulnerable on him. This character, Sentry, whatever it is, we only need to do that one time, and then the second time the status effect gets applied, it will actually take effect. So this is an all-out attack turn. Neither one of these characters are attacking us, so we can basically set one of them up for death pretty easily by bashing into 2 strikes. And now that 17 health is the perfect number for our upgraded Wild Strike, which we just love to grab right here. Got a 1 of 4 chance of grabbing it. Not quite. In fact, this is kind of a not great hand. Yeah, I'm not sure how we go about this. We're definitely going to play armaments. I think that's a given. We might use our potion here. Alright. Oh! Okay, this is going to help us out a lot. So the fact that we're on our 10th attack just barely pushes this. Well, it's more than barely, but we were just barely under lethal for this with no other attacks in hand. But now this is lethal because of our Pendim. So Pendim coming in clutch again. This effect would be really nice, except for the fact that this is going to be the only thing left to fight, and it has 3 artifacts, so this is just wasted in some sense. Unfortunately, the cost of the cards that we have in hand really make it difficult for us to play efficiently. So now the question is, do we want to throw out our Essence of Steel, block 4 of the 10? Yeah, I think that's fine. We'll get a fair amount of value out of this. And then we get to keep all of that plated armor for next turn because he didn't break our armor. Alright, now this is all about just getting his damage, getting through all of this to hit his small health pool, getting enough damage to break all this block. We got 1, 2, 3, and maybe a defend to supplement the Iron Wave block. Shrug it off feels pretty good here. Burning Pact. This is a great opportunity to demonstrate what Burning Pact is good for. So we got a really bad card here. Like, this kind of sucks. Having an attack or something else here would be great. Well, Burning Pact allows us to fix that. So we just destroy this card and we draw 2 in its place. Pommel Strike. Shrug it off. We got a lot of card draw here. Let's go ahead and activate our Infernal Blade just to see what we got for free. Thunderclap is like one of the worst cards we could have pulled. But we'll go ahead and use it because it's free. That takes away one of those. Yeah, I think we just play these 2. And I'm not sure that it matters what order we play them in, because none of the draws that we get from this are going to change what we end up doing. That's unfortunate. We will have our Whirlwind and 2 defense next turn, so... And we're actually going to get 3 plated armor when we end our turn, so we're going to have 9 defense, so we're not going to take too much damage this turn. Is this just a Whirlwind? Double defend, triple defend, Whirlwind? Alright, we've cycled our deck now, so all of our cards are back in the draw pool. along with these 2 dazed and this 1 wound. That's 6 block. We're taking 20. That's 9 plus 2 is 11 block. And we only deal 8. Yeah, this kind of sucks. We're going to take a big hit, but we have to do this to break through all of his armor. They're getting a little scary now. Getting vulnerable up would be nice, but we just don't have a way to break through these artifacts. He's only got 21 health, so we can get 10. Yeah, I think we can kill him. Alright. 14 gold, a fruit juice, and another card. I like having a cleave. Do we want another block? This is an upgraded Shrug It Off. 1 for 11 is a lot better than a regular block. Let's do a quick count of our block cards. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 out of 25 cards are block. I would feel better with like 8. I like to have that ratio of about 1/3 block to 2/3 attacks and other things. So as much as I want this cleave, it's not upgraded, and we do need the block, and this is a pretty good one. And more card draw again cycles our deck. We knew this was going to be a tough run with 5 enemies in a row. Let's talk about the fruit juice. Fruit juice is just gain 5 max hit points. There's no reason whatsoever to sit on it. Might as well just drink it. The good news is we can draw through a lot of our cards here if we want to try to set up a very specific turn 1 with Battle Trance. The downside is if we draw too many of our good cards, we won't see them for quite a while. And so if we have a pretty good play with the hand that we have, we should probably just go with that and ignore the Battle Trance this time. So Wild Strike, Clothesline, and Infernal Blade. And notice we are at our 10th attack again, so let's see if we can get an even better card than Wild Strike for our... Okay, not really. About the same. In fact, they all are the same. So we have 3. We definitely want to apply the weak to make the first couple of attacks that this guy does not be so scary. So this is just these 3 cards, I think. And just like that, half of his health is gone. Snecko causes confusion. Confusion is basically all of your cards have random costs, and that can make your cards very difficult to play, but sometimes easier to play. For example, Shockwave normally costs us 2. This turn it's free to play. Iron Wave usually only costs us 1. This time it costs 3. So I think once these numbers get re-rolled, they stay that way for the rest of this combat. So Shockwave will always be 0 and Iron Wave will always be 3. I don't believe he ever does it again. We're only taking 6, and we can play a defend, but it's kind of pricey. We should definitely play this just because it's free, and then kind of decide from there. So Iron Wave into Wild Strike looks pretty good. Burning Pack to draw more cards would be fine if we didn't have a good play, but I think that's a good enough play, to be perfectly honest. It takes almost all the damage that we would be taking and blocks it, and then we still return a significant chunk. So I like it. Oh, look at that. 0 for Demonfall. Well, we might as well. Alright, this time he's swinging for 16. I can basically only play these 2 cards. So there's not a lot of options or a lot of choices here, so I guess we'll just do the one thing that we can do. And be very sad that our health is getting very low. Is 24? 24 is enough to kill him. And he's vulnerable, so it's 36. So yeah, perfect. The Sneaker is dead, we get 7 health back, so we're still pretty good. With about 50% health. Another Essence of Steel Potion. And ooh, a Metallicize. Upgraded. So a Metallicize is a power card we play that basically permanently gives us 4 block every turn. That is pretty solid, especially with the upgrade. It is not as slow as the Demon Power card because it's cheaper for one. So it doesn't take your whole turn to play it, but also it procs at the end of your turn, not at the beginning of your turn, which means that the turn you play it, you actually get the 4 block. So yeah, that's a no-brainer. I do feel like our deck's getting a little bloated. Unfortunately, I checked, and there are only 2 merchants on this. There's 3, but there's only 1 path that lets you get to. I guess there's 2 paths you can go through here and get that second one. But the most you could get in this particular run is 2 merchants. So we're going to get both of them, and we are probably going to save money to make sure we can remove some cards so we can thin our deck out just a little bit. Alright, this is our last fight before a little reprieve. Okay. Really like the Metallicize in our opening hand. Kind of like having the Shockwave in our opening hand. Wondering if Shrug It Off is worth the play here. Or just throw the strike out. Shrug It Off mainly would give us another card to draw, but I think just this combo is fine. This is going to set us up for 3 turns. Metallicize is going to block the majority of this damage, and then the strike. So typically in this fight, you got the Centurion and the Mystic. The Mystic is a healer. They will attack you for small amounts of damage with some debuffs. I think they apply Weaken to you, if I'm not mistaken. They will also heal both characters regularly, and will sometimes, I think they'll actually strengthen both characters too. And then the Centurion mainly just attacks and occasionally will defend, but he's the attacker. One of the things that will happen is if you kill the Mystic first, he starts regularly attacking with a much more powerful attack. So it often pays off to focus him down first, even though it takes a little longer. Unless your damage is just really, really good and you can kill him fast. Okay, in this scenario, I think it's absolutely the play to throw armaments out. She did weaken us, or sorry, she did frail, so this makes our block less effective. But this is going to have a couple of interesting effects. Infernal Blade's going to go to 0 cost. Rage is going to go to 5 block per attack. And so now we have enough to play all of these cards. So let's go ahead and play Rage. See what we get from Infernal Blade. Oh. AoE attack. Unfortunately, the AoE here is actually kind of meh because of the block that she put up last turn. And so it would do 15 to him and 0 to her. So this is actually a terrible attack for this turn. But if it does cycle, it could be really efficient later on. So I think we're just going to play these two. And I guess we can play this. Oh, this is our 10th. See, I should have waited. This is still fine, but we could have gotten significantly more damage by playing the Wicked Strike last. Although I guess with this card we couldn't play it last. Yeah, this still probably was the best way to do this. Because the Whirlwind consumes all of the energy, we would never have it to play Wild Strike afterwards. Play the Whirlwind first, so that was probably the right way to do it. We're definitely within lethal range this turn, and that's ideal because this indicates that she is very likely to do her heal. She usually heals for about 16 apiece. So Whirlwind upgraded is going to be enough damage to not only finish him off, but also put some hurt on her. Is that the best play? 32 damage to both characters is probably the best play. The only thing that I'm thinking of is I would really like to play Clothesline on her, just to stack 2 more turns of weak, so that if she does attack us, it's going to be mediocre. This is actually a pretty good use of Burning Pact as well. If we wanted to try to draw into something else. I don't think there's anything else I'd rather draw into. It's either Whirlwind or we like Clothesline, Wild Strike, and maybe Whirlwind at the end for... Actually, that does work, doesn't it? So we put 12 on him, put 12 on her with the 2 weak, and then we Whirlwind for 8, and that's enough to kill him and hurt her, but also put her with the weak. So we're talking a lot here just to conserve a few hit points, but miscalculated once again because I'm doing the math down here, but I keep forgetting that we had applied vulnerables, so that was way easier than it needed to be. Alright, she's going to heal herself back to full. So that entire conversation was probably completely moot. She's going to do another heal, so this is a good opportunity to try to draw into another play. So this is a bash, pommel strike, what? Oh, because of, like, why didn't I draw a card for pommel strike? And it's because I forget. Where's it Battle Trance prevents you from drawing any more cards. So if you're going to do multiple card draws in a turn, always play this one last. Unless you don't want to draw a card, which is... Can't out-heal my damage forever. Or maybe you can. Alright, mobile armaments and upgrade the Wild Strike. Get some block. And we don't need it. And another fight down. So we got through that 5 fights with 48 health. A little less than half of our total health, but that increased our max health by another 5, so that's pretty solid. Alright, well this might be the first time in the game where we're going to just pass on a card. Warcry definitely has its uses. We talked about this card earlier, I believe. Draw 1 card, put a card from your hand onto the top of your draw pile. What this allows you to do is set up plays. So let's say you draw a card, but it's a combo of some sort, and you really want that card to be played next turn, not this turn. Warcry allows you to manipulate your deck and make that happen. Havoc is a card that pairs with a card like Warcry or a few other cards, and it takes the top card on the draw pile and just exhausts it. So one use of these together would be take one of our wound cards that we get, put it on top of the draw pile, and then play Havoc to get rid of it. But I don't think that this is for our deck. Entrench, doubling our block for a turn can be really good. There's definitely a lot of synergy with this card. We do not have any of the other cards that make this card better. And paying 2 to double your block is pretty bad unless you have some very big block cards to grow that number very large. So this is going to be the first time in this run that we're going to skip. One of the things that's really hard to do as a new player is, oh man, I got a reward, I got to pick something, I want to make my deck better. But sometimes every card that you could pick is just not going to make your deck better. What it's going to do is it's going to make your deck less consistent, and you're going to get stuck with hands that you just can't play as well as you'd like to. And this is one of those times, I think, so we're going to skip that. And we're going to go right here.
Oh.
So this is our first merchant. The merchant has a bunch of wares for us. Every merchant is going to have 2 attack cards, 2 skill cards, and 1 power card. All of these cards are going to be from your class pool. And in addition to that, he's always going to have 2 colorless cards. These are a generic card that every class basically has access to, but primarily only through the shop. There are a few ways to get cards from other classes. But we don't really need to talk about that today. The merchant also sells 3 relics and 3 potions, and they offer a card removal service. Card removal does get more expensive the more you do it, up to a certain limit. but it's definitely one of the things that we want to spend some money on. Before we do, though, I definitely want to see... Oh, that is spicy. Okay. Yes. We've saved up a lot of gold, and this particular card could set us up for a really, really good run. Let's organize our card by type. So at the moment, we only have 2 power cards. There is a bottle for every type of card. So there's a bottle for the attack cards, a bottle for the power cards, and a bottle for the skill cards. And what these bottles do is they make those cards innate. And a card with the innate tag will always start in your opening hand. Always starting every game with Demon Form is interesting because you're going to get the maximum number of turns of strength growth throughout that particular fight. The downside to this is it's 3 energy right from the beginning of the game, and that basically takes up your whole turn for a little bit of extra damage on all of your subsequent turns. That's not terrible, but it's probably not always going to be the best turn 1 play, especially against some of the smaller enemies where it just makes more sense to kill something now as opposed to be way more powerful in 7 turns. This is a great card to have in your opening hand, maybe against the boss or an elite, but not so much against normal fights. This card, however, an upgraded metallicize means we're guaranteed to block 4 damage every single turn we get attacked. And that can basically give us the extra health we need by the end of a run to actually beat a boss at the top of the Spire. So we're going to definitely buy the bottled tornado, throw it on our metallicize. That leaves us with a good chunk of change. And looking at the rest of these cards, one of them I actually have my eye on, and that is Fire Breathing, which is another power card. We have several cards in our deck that are adding status cards regularly. Our Wicked Strikes and some of the other cards that we've gotten from the Infernal Blade have triggered this a few times, where we get like a burn card from the Immolate or whatever it was. This makes those cards more palatable. Having this power active means that every time we draw one, it will deal 6 damage to all enemies in an AoE. And so adding all of those status cards to our deck with our all-out attack can definitely pay off if we can get this Fire Breathing before we draw them. So I'm leaning into maybe grabbing this. We definitely want to grab that, and we have the money to do both. And that still gives us a little bit of money to consider maybe one of these other cards. So let's go ahead and start with the removal. What's the absolute worst card in our deck right now? Well, I would go out on a limb and say that the worst card that we're ever going to encounter in a hand is probably going to be a strike. And the reason I say that is we have a lot of good attack cards. Anytime we would draw a strike instead of another attack card that's better, it's going to feel bad. I would also say blocks or these defend cards could be removed, but the simple fact of the matter is we don't have a lot of block. And ideally, what we want to be seeing is like 1 block card per hand. So we want to keep it kind of thin and hope we don't get them all stacked up in one hand like we have on a few occasions very often. But yeah, I think we're going to just remove this one. The best decks that tend to win these games are the ones that have very few strike and defense in them, or at least unupgraded strike and defense. You don't typically ever want to pay for an upgrade to a strike or defend, but because there's almost always better things to upgrade. But if they happen to get an event or a relic that tags one randomly, it's not a bad thing. And those ones, you know, you can kind of keep in your deck. They're okay. Last but not least, every single shop will always have one card on sale. The cost of the card is typically tied to its rarity. So these gray cards are going to be cheaper. The blue card's more expensive, and then this card would actually be more like 100, 150 maybe. But it's marked down. It's 50% off if I'm not mistaken because of the sale. So double tap. This turn, your next attack is played twice. I don't know. I think we just barely have enough money to afford both of these cards. Playing a Whirlwind twice with 3 mana or energy. That would feel pretty good. Playing Blood for Blood or Wicked Strike. That would not feel as good without this already in our deck. Getting value out of those bad cards that we end up drawing. This also pairs really well with cards that do the strength thing, which we still don't have very many of. I think I am going to pick up the Fire Breathing, and I think instead of a card, we're going to grab a potion. Which potion? Gaining 5 strength for 1 turn we know can be huge. And with the right draw and the right pen nib, this could just make a fight over instantly. Artifact is good against specific fights. 12 block is essentially 12 health. You could almost think of this as heal for 12. But I think what's better than healing for 12 is just killing something that's going to hit us for a lot more than 12 quicker. So we'll pick up the potion. Unfortunately, that does mean we're not going to have enough money to really do anything at the second shop. We have an upgrade, potentially. And this upgrade I really like because 5 turns is a long, long time. As long as the enemy doesn't have artifacts, this essentially gives us a long, long time to keep them weak and vulnerable to everything we're doing. In addition to that, by the time these effects wear off, either our bash or our clothesline or this card have come back around and have allowed us to maintain it. So that's something to think about. Fire Breathing makes these status cards even more powerful when we do start pulling them. But this is a very slow effect. Getting this Wild Strike upgraded wouldn't feel terrible. And upgrading Demon Form wouldn't be terrible. We still have plenty of time for other cards to be added, upgraded cards to be added, as well as more campfires to visit. So I think I'm going to go ahead and upgrade this, and we're going to get a lot more aggressive with our Wild Strikes. But this is so good. I think I've talked myself out of it. I think this is too good to not have. This sets up damage and prevents damage simultaneously. Alright, so here's our first chest of this floor. Usually there's only one of these, but sometimes you'll find other ones in the question mark rooms. And remember, we took the key, which is going to give us a curse every time we open one of these. However, our Omamori will prevent the curse, so... Horn Cleats. Start of your second turn, gain 14 block. This item is attached to a key. We'll talk a little bit more about the keys later, but the one thing you need to know about the keys is in order to fight the final boss on the 4th floor, you have to collect 3 keys throughout your run, and they're in 3 different locations. The sapphire key is always going to be in one of these treasure boxes. And so one of these treasure boxes that you get throughout a run, you'll have the option of taking the key instead of the relic. If you do that, you lose the relic. So this is a pretty good relic and gives us a really reliable opening couple of turns against powerful enemies. Because that extra 14 block means we don't have to play any block cards typically on that second turn. We can go all out on our attack. So definitely like the Horn Cleat. Alright, my original intention was to go here and spend some money to remove another card from our deck, but unfortunately that's just not going to happen. So let's go ahead and take the special event. We'll grab this elite, get a campfire, have one more fight and an elite, and then we'll have a final campfire to heal up at. So the intention is probably to heal here, but if we do really well, we may not need to. Also, depending on what this event is, turns out to be another one of these fights. Well, Shockwave is really good here. Metallicize is really good here. And then Infernal Blade is a free attack. So let's see what that looks like. I don't think fire breathing is particularly good in this particular situation. Too unreliable. Shrug It Off draws us a card, which could be bad because we could draw something good. Yeah, it's definitely Infernal Blade. Clothesline for even more weak. Alright, well this guy's never going to be not weak, so that's good. 15 damage is a lot better than 21 every turn. The downside is we're taking 15 damage and we don't have a lot of life left, so I'm going to invert this now. Let's hope for a really big attack turn on turn 2. That's a lot of attack cards. Not enough to kill. We're going to get 16 block though. 14 for the cleat and 2 for the plated armor and 4 for metallicize, so actually more than enough. So this is just straight up sending. Clothesline is our finisher. We've talked about this card, we've talked about this card. This is the upgraded version. 7 AoE plus vulnerable is pretty good. But how many strikes do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4 strikes in our deck. And then in addition to that, we've picked up Pommel Strike, that's 5. Wild Strike, that's 6. And Wild Strike again, that's 7 strikes. Any card with the term strike in it increases the damage of Perfected Strike by 2. That's 14 more damage for a total of 20. That's not great. that's really not that great. I have expressed throughout this run that we really could use another instance of AoE, and this is kind of the best one we've seen. We've seen a couple cleaves unupgraded, but not much else. So I think Thunderclap fills in the last of the AoE cards that we're going to look for. It'll feel bad if we see an upgraded cleave later, but there's no guarantees we will. So we'll go ahead and take that. Alright, we got one really big potion turn. The dream scenario is to play this on the pen nib turn with one of the best attacks we have. Okay, well the AoE is definitely going to pay off in this case. This is a very difficult fight because they come at you hard and fast. Having the metallicize is definitely going to help a little bit, but not enough to save our skin. We're definitely going to need to block as much of this as possible. And then the trick is basically focus them down as fast as you can, one at a time. This one is probably the most dangerous one. And then whichever one of these two just seems easier based on their health at the time. But let's go ahead and get this. This is unfortunate that we're not going to get very many attacks. This is an interesting dilemma here because this damage that triggers is AoE damage. And with both our wild strikes still in the deck, where'd they go? They put cards into our draw pile. So like, let's say we draw 2 wild strikes next turn and they put a bunch of wounds in our draw pile. We could immediately be doing AoE damage. So I actually think that even though I really want to do that, I think this might be the better play. This is tough. This could also just be a bad play, but let's find out. This could be the end of our run. We did play a really tough run there with 5 fights. Okay, so we got some timely block and shockwave. Shockwave is really good here. Shockwave's going to make the damage output much lower. Shrug it off is like critical to surviving. Maybe not though. No, they're still doing 20, so we're already at 18 though. That's a lot of overblock. Right, at the end of our turn, gain 4 block. So we're at 18 because of the cleat. So this is the turn we really want to fight. And we've got 2 attacks worth of fighting. This is a bash or an infernal blade and a pommel strike. Infernal Blade could hit an AoE card, which would be great. Uppercut's not terrible. It's not ideal, but it's not terrible. Pommel Strike's gonna draw a card, hopefully not one of our Wicked Strikes. Ugh, Wild Strike, of course. Well, now I'm already regretting playing the Fire Breather. Although he is putting cards in our deck as well, so maybe it will pay off. Okay, Rage gets us some block this turn. 1, 2. Burning Pact, exhaust a card. Draw 2. Okay. 8 times 3. Yeah. Flex potion. 13 times 3. I think that's the one. Oof. I knew that flex potion was going to come in handy. For every 5 cards in your deck, heal 3 hit points whenever you enter a rest site. That's really good for us, actually. Our deck's pretty big. A speed potion gives us more block. And card time. Hemokinosis is not good enough, I think, at this point. It is good, and it's better upgraded, but we're low health at the moment, so we can't even really afford to play it. Dual wield. Choose an attack or power card. Add a copy of that into your hand. The dream with this card would be draw it with your opening hand, play 2 metallicize, and get 8 block every turn. I think that's like the best case scenario for that card. Also, you could find like a... play this with like Infernal Blade, get a 0 cost power spell, copy that, play it, maybe. True Grit. This is a way to remove those status cards from our deck. It exhausts a card at random. The upgraded version of this is 9 block, and it will exhaust 1 card of our choice, which is much more powerful. If this were upgraded, I'd be more inclined to consider it. I think we'd take this card just for the chance to double metallicize. The problem is we innated metallicize that it's always going to be in our opening hand, and we're never going to get a chance to line these up. So what's our second best dual wield if we don't get that card in our opening hand? Blood for blood? Maybe just another Wicked Strike? Maybe another Whirlwind plus? Maybe we just Infernal Blade twice and get another free superpower attack if we're lucky. I think it's worth it. I think it's okay. I'm not sure it makes our deck better, but I'm gonna grab it. Alright, so now we're at a very critical juncture here. We can heal before another elite, or we can just bypass the elite for a bunch of random who knows what. I think it's perfectly fine to go for this elite, but if we do, I'd like to have more than this potion in hand, and we're just not going to get another potion before we get there. Which means that we probably almost 100% for sure are resting at this campsite. Alright, we got a little bit of healing, so we're actually at 50 health. Is there a card that's like, man, if we just had that card upgraded? Add 2 copies of Metallicize to your hand. Play 3 Metallicizes turn 1. Gain 12 block every turn. If there was a way to make this card innate, it's like good block here. More damage there. More damage from status cards. What's the play? What's the play? Pay 1 to make 2 copies of a card. That's not a skill. Draw 2. Draw 4. Or go up to 80 health. I think we have to go up to 80 health, and then if we get through this next elite with like a reasonable health pool to go into the final boss, we could definitely consider not resting and upgrading a card. Also, we'll have 1 more card, potentially maybe 2 cards that might be worth upgrading. So let's do that. Let's rest here. This is actually our starting health. We have 101 because of this bad boy. And we're about to get some more. Oh, goody goody. Okay. Blood for blood is 44. 44 damage. We could basically kill one of these guys this turn. But we would have to pass on Metallicize and Fire Breathing. Or we could set up... this is our 10th nib, that's why. Okay. So these cards are not normally this strong, obviously. So what if we did like 34... 44... I would like to do this, but I think it's too expensive. I think if we go with this, plus this, plus this, that's going to set us up for the future. The other option is we go this, plus this, plus this. And we still have somebody that's probably lethal next turn, plus the Metallicize, plus the Fire Breathing for whenever we do draw this wound. Which is 6 damage, which is more than... well, that won't be 10. That'll be 5. Alright, let's do this. Let's go with that, and that. And I still have enough energy for Iron Wave. If he's below 12, he's lethal with 2 strikes. Also a bash or an uppercut, or not an uppercut, clothesline, so. Okay, well, battle trance. We got the clothesline. We've got tons of block. We really don't need to spend any cards on block. We could... I could Burning Pact... something. And try to draw into a more efficient way of killing him. I did the thing again. Dang it. Well, that was stupid of me. No draw. Yeah, there's a lot of things to keep track of in this game, and high-level players are able to do it. Between things like this and special interactions of cards and all of these triggers and all of these triggers, it's a lot to keep in mind. We did get our first trigger of this going off from our fire, so that's cool. A little tickle damage there. I say we bash, pommel strike, probably, but if we do that, we probably bash and then draw. Okay. And then we can play the defend to try to soak some more damage. Because we're not going to kill him. This isn't lethal. 16's very likely lethal on our next draw. So conserve a little bit. Ah, what a hand. Alright, well, this is 7. That's going to be extra damage on him, but not enough to kill. I could dual wield into double thunderclap. That's fine. What does this give me? Reckless charge. Yeah, let's dual wield into double thunderclap. And then that, and then reckless charge into him. And unfortunately, no blocking cards this time. So we're taking 12. But Metallicize will drop it to 8, so I really like that innate Metallicize. That's pretty powerful. This just finishes the fight. Heal back 7. 6 and 1. Three common cards in a deck that already feels bloated. I think this is a skip. Sword Boomerang upgraded would be considered just because of the demon form for the boss, but I don't think it's good enough here. Because 4 times 3 is 12 for 1, which is not a wicked slice or blood for blood, but then you start adding all the strength to it and it gets really, really big. So this with our demon form after it triggers a few times would be amazing. Okay, here's one thing to consider. Every 5 cards, the campfire is going to give us 3 more healing due to the feather. We only need 1 more card to hit a 5-card threshold and put us at a 30-card deck. Which means we're free to skip this and take this card, but we almost have to take this card to get the 3 health. Is that worth it? Only if the card's good enough. I'm not going to worry about 3 health for the boss. But there's something to think about. So if we take this, we could skip this card. I think this card's more likely to be better than what we ended up with in this pile. So I think I'm going to skip again. This could be a pretty tough fight. We do have a number of AoE cards now, and so that's going to help. Unfortunately, we got a really bad opening hand and no way to draw into anything better. Well, that's guaranteed. That's probably good, but we could shrug it off to draw for something better. We don't need to play any defensive cards. One, two, three. If I draw something with Shrug It Off, we'll be at 2 energy. What do I want to play? Would I want to play dual build? Battle Trance is a terrible draw. Rage is a terrible draw. Shockwave would be good. Shockwave would be pretty good to draw. Whirlwind would be pretty bad because we don't have any energy left to make it good. Wild Strike would be okay. Maybe just take the turn as is. So play the Fire Word. Play the Iron Wave. Probably here. I don't really want to draw a card, and we don't need the blocks. Okay, so this is the Gremlin leader and the Gremlin mobs. The way that this fight works, they're going to continually resummon these things as we kill them. The advantage is, if we kill them, we take less damage. And every time that he has to resummon, it gives us time to basically beat on him. Ugh, this is rough. 9 times 3 is 27. We have 14 block from our cleats, so that's going to be good. He has 18 health. We can definitely get rid of him. What's the best way to do that? It's going to be like these 3 cards and then Wild Strike, right? Alright. This turn's gonna hurt, but... Thunderclap feels good here. Shockwave feels pretty good here. 4 points. 1, 2, 3. Ugh. This is a must play. This is going to set him up for later. Is this worth doing? I almost think it would have been better off to duplicate the AoE attack. Even though we wouldn't have gotten to play the second one, it would be in our deck for the recycle. I don't really think a second clothesline is duplicated, so we'll just save that card for later. Alright, this is a good whirlwind. I got enough to play one extra card. I've got to trigger this 3 times. So I can play a strike into this, I can play shrug it off into this. These will both be dead, so shrug it off is pointless. So it's just rage, strike, whirlwind. It's specifically fights like these that your deck just has to have enough AoE. Without the AoE attacks, this is a really hard fight. This is just straight up attack as much as possible. This is the only attack we have in hand. That feels really bad. We could play Demon Form, but I think it's just attack set up more vulnerable. He has 4 vulnerable already, though. Maybe this is a Demon Form turn. We've never played this card since we picked it up. I'm gonna go with it. This is an Armaments Demon Form turn. That's just gonna make it easier for other cards to clear these little gremlins. The 10 damage is... I mean, technically it's 15, because he is vulnerable. But the 3 stacks of vulnerable is the real value of this card, and he's already got 4 stacks. That just puts him at 7. There's no way we're gonna... If we don't kill him in less than 4 turns, this is just a bad turn to bash. Battle Trance is looking good here. Iron Wave, Infernal Blade. Terrible draws. Look at all of this. All this block, and nobody's attacking us. Clash for 17. Oh. I can't even play this card. Ugh. How terrible. Alright, well we can definitely, like, draw a card. Oh, we can't, because I did the thing again. So that was pointless. Jeez. What a messed up turn this turned out to be. Yeah, that feels... This is why Infernal Blade is terrible, because it just gives you random stuff that doesn't always work out. Although, it did work out a couple of times for us, so... Okay, Thunderclap helps a little bit here. 33 damage is a lot of damage coming at our face. Clothesline is almost enough to kill him, and I still have a strike, but then we take 33. But I can't do anything about that. Armaments gives us a little bit of block, and upgrades the clothesline big enough. I don't want to draw cards that I can't play. I miscalculated that. Oh well. This is exactly why I didn't want to draw cards. So bad. Miscalculated the math again. Could have saved us a little bit of health, but all in all, we're still at about 40% of our total. More than half of our starting health. 44 is more than that. Okay, what do we get? Another Wild Strike, or a Feel No Pain. Exhausting cards gains block. Yeah, not sure about this. That feels good. That feels less good. Is double demon form even possible? I think double demon form is just far too slow. How many ways do we have to exhaust cards? Not enough. Just not enough. This is just bad. Is this even remotely worth it? We have a whole nother act to get through. I think there's going to be much better options than this. This feels really bad. And I'm actually going to skip out on all of it, even though it would give us 3 extra health on a heal. Alright, so we're at 60 health. 60 health going into the champion. I would consider that second Wild Strike, or third Wild Strike, if we had already upgraded one, or if it were upgraded. Um, 17 damage for one is just way better than 12 at this point in the game. Also, if we had this upgraded, putting all those status cards in our deck actually does a lot of damage in the long run. And it could be good enough. What's going to help us kill this guy? More weak. More block. Or just more damage. This is one of the best upgrades in the game, statistically, just because it's plus 5 points to a card. A typical card is plus 3. This is plus 5. This sets up a more reliable use for this card. We'll basically swinging this card every single time we see it anyways. Like, there's no card we play that's not this card when it's in our hand, right? Unless it's like a clothesline angle. Yeah. That's just 5 more damage every time we cycle our deck. Also, we didn't even talk about the Happy Flower. Happy Flower relic. Very fun relic. Really, really good in long fights, like the one we're about to encounter. If we survive long enough, this starts to insanely increase our output potential up to a certain limit without more card draw. But even with card draw, you can just get so much energy every turn that you're able to play everything you draw. So this gets really, really good, and we'll want to keep an eye on the extra energy because I'm not used to that, and I've been miscounting it already. Let's jump into the champ. Well, we got the dream, boys and girls. Dual wield into metallicize. Is 8 block every turn the thing that's going to save us here? I'm not sure that it is, but maybe two metallicizes are. Now the downside is we can't play this one this go around. It'll have to loop through our deck. But battle trance, strike, block. We don't really need to throw any more block out. We just need more attacks. A lot of setup here. 8 turns of voltage is a lot. Rage. Whirlwind. 12 times 5 is 60. I would love to stack more weak on it though. I think we're going to stack the weak and then just play this for the 3. these as well, especially when he starts throwing down the real big boy attacks. Alright, Burning Pact is a problem. We need more attack cards. Okay, got more attack cards. Take that. Ironclad is better than a strike, and a strike is better than nothing. Wild strike for sure. Pummel strike probably for sure. Fire breathing, maybe. We have no status cards on it. Okay. So let's pummel strike into a draw and see what we get. Okay. I think this is just throw all the strikes out. And we don't need the block this turn, so... leaning towards Wild Strike into Whirlwind and maybe a Defend. So that's going to be 1, 2, and then 3 times 6. One to 6, this is 4, yeah. This is better than playing that. Conserve the health, Wild Strike. 3 times 9. Or we apply 3 more stacks at vulnerable. He's got 5 stacks at vulnerable. We'll have plenty of opportunities for that. Damage. Is our metalicize armaments. Emo. Having that other card would have been nice. But Battle Trance basically makes these somewhat irrelevant. The question is, do we Demon Form here? Because if we Demon Form here, do we even bother with Battle Trance? Probably. Yeah, we'll still Battle Trance because we still get like 1 attack off if we do. More than 1 attack, maybe. Blood for blood. Demon form. He's about to lose his weak status. This is almost a must play at this point. That keeps him weak for 2 more turns. The blood for blood hits him. And we just have to pass on the demon. Okay, well, we definitely need a Burning Pact here. I say we Burning Pact the strike. So get rid of that card for good. Or at least for this fight. Okay, then we Whirlwind. Oh, I could dual wield Whirlwinds. Pommel Strike, Whirlwind, or Dual Wield, Whirlwind. Whirlwind does 9 times 4. Whirlwind's like my strongest attack right now, and every 3 turns we're going to get an extra energy. So like if we hit the Whirlwind on a turn where we have 5 energy, it's even bigger. Slightly less damage now for slightly more damage later. Take it. I think I just wasted my pen nib. That feels terrible. Alright, this is the last stage, so now his attacks are really powerful. And it's going to start to be very scary if we don't have the right cards in hand. Luckily, we do have this. And I can apply that. You notice he did purge all of his debuffs when he charged up for this 3rd phase, so we can at least do that. So now we're only looking at 40. Alright, this is going to be close. This is his big attack. If we survive this, it kind of goes back to this normal, not so scary attack. Not that scary attack, I guess. I think we have to play this. I think we have to play this. And then 5 plus 12 is 17. We're only going to take 1 point of damage, so then we just throw the strikes. I think we've got this. We still have 1 defensive potion in a pickle. This could be the pickle. And 5 is 10 and 12, so playing both of these keeps us from taking damage. Then we can play Bash to set up the next turn, or we play Thunderclap. Strike. No, I think Bash for 3 turns of vulnerable moving forward. Does the order matter? Kind of. This is going to put us at 9 attacks, so the next attack is Wild Strike. That's a good one. Bash for vulnerable, Iron Wave for block, defend to maximize our block and not take any damage this turn. And then we could play this for 18 or... Okay, I miscounted again. Wild Strike is going to be over 30. But I think if we have a play, we just play it, right? We don't need another stack of vulnerable, so this is better. Alright, well, we drew the bash again. 17. We need some block. Like, a lot of block. 27 times 2 is over 50 points of damage. Oh, thank goodness. Okay, so now we're at 30, and I can still get this off. I think that saves us, barely. Um, 12 times 4 is 48. This is 30. And that's... times 3 is 36. Oh, that was close. Holy moly. Alright. Well, the good news is we finished with at least 1 hit point, which means next act we can start with 104 hit points and some more rewards. So let's see what we picked up. 95 gold, an attack potion, which gives us a random attack card. This could be really good in helping to set up our pen nib, just to give us like 1 more free play to get to 10, or... And then the card. We've seen all of these cards before. I'm not super sold on any of them. That would be great. Double tap. Even that's not amazing in our deck. It only works well with the demon power. Is it just bludgeon? Again, if one of these cards were upgraded, I would probably snap pick them up. The fact that they are not upgraded makes me struggle to pick them up. I actually think there's room in our deck for this, though. And the reason I say that is this can just be like a critical finisher in certain cases, especially with the vulnerable status. You see a big card in hand to deal a bunch of damage and kill something. But also, if we get a bunch of those status cards in our deck, even though we're triggering the damage from the fire breathing, this card, if we get a handful of them with this card in hand, we can just destroy them all for a bunch of damage, which is actually pretty good. So I am going to take the Fire Fiend, Fiend Fire, and we'll go with that. And then our final reward. No more potions. No more seeing what the enemy is thinking. Or transform 3 cards and upgrade them. I am very much in favor of transforming non-upgraded strikes. I think we keep our defense. We have so few of them. But the strikes just... I would rather have other cards in hand than the strikes. So yeah, let's go ahead and grab this and let's pick our 3 strikes. Oh, very, very nice. Okay. So we ended up with a upgraded Infernal Blade, which I like a lot better than the one we have. We ended up with an upgraded Cleave, which I love having another AoE card that's pretty solid. And we ended up with Barricade. Barricade is amazing with our Metallicize combo that we had in the last play. Because if they don't break the block or they do something else, it'll just carry over to the next turn. And so this paired with Metallicize, especially if we can like triplicate or duplicate the Metallicize like we did before, that becomes really powerful. So I really like that. I think this is a really good run so far. I think we definitely are starting to see some issues with not having good block cards. And so we definitely want to focus on getting some better block cards, of which there are many, but we just haven't seen any of them this run. The best block card we have is sort of the upgraded Shrug It Off, kind of. And that's just not going to cut it moving forward through Act 3. So, until next time, this has been The Nose Plays. We will pick up with Act 3 in the next video, maybe this evening or sometime tomorrow morning. But I'm having a lot of fun with this game, and I sit here and basically do exactly what I'm doing on camera now, just not on camera all the time. And so I figured, let's go ahead and do a couple of these and see what people think of it. If you've never seen this game, you should definitely check it out. It's so much fun. Sadly, it was recently on sale for like $8, so it's really cheap. There's a ton of mods that make it even more entertaining. I haven't even looked at them all yet. But there's a bunch of mods out there you can get through the Steam Workshop. And yeah, there's just tons and tons of fun with this game. And it is just a fun little mental tease, brain exercise. The kind of thing that I like to do to relax after a hard day of work is just sit down with a card game like this and enjoy thinking through all of the different tactics and ways to play the game. So if you're enjoying it, leave it a like, leave it a comment, let me know if there's any tips, tricks, or tactics that you like to use when you're playing the Ironclad. And we'll see you next time. Have a good day.